Are you desiring more out of life? More love, more connection, more experience, just more aliveness? Well, that is your soul calling you. And together we are going to uncover those soul desires and help you bridge the gap between your physical life and your true soul self. Welcome to the Suddenly Spiritual podcast. My name is Emilee. I'm an intuitive, a psychic medium, and someone who recently and very suddenly awakened to spirituality. On this podcast, we are going to talk all about connecting with your soul to live your fullest, most beautiful life. We're going to talk about spirituality from the perspective of the everyday person. It's my goal that you feel seen and supported on this journey of discovering your soul and awakening to the incredible world of spirit. Let's get started. Hi friends, I just wanted to pop in with a quick note before today's episode begins. This episode that's following is a little mini workshop that I did live over on my Instagram account. I'm doing these workshops every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern, and then there's also a replay available there on Instagram too. But this month in September, we're focusing on soul discovery, and so this is a replay from the live video this past Wednesday on the 13th. If you want to catch the recordings live, be sure to head over to Instagram and give me a follow. I'll have the link in the show notes. I hope you enjoy. Here it is. Hello. Welcome back to another week. I have a fun little mini workshop planned for you. I'm really excited to be chatting with you again today. This is our second live video of September, and for all of September, we're chatting about soul discovery. So last week, we talked about connecting with the energy of your soul, and today we're talking about connecting with the wisdom that's inside of you in your soul. We're going to talk about why there's so much value in learning to trust yourself and learning to trust that inner wisdom. And then we're going to talk about some ways to start hearing that inner wisdom and ways to really connect with all that's already inside of you, because you're super smart. You've got all kinds of wisdom right here in you, in your heart, in your soul. And you'll start to experience how absolutely life-changing it is to connect with that wisdom and start living from that wisdom and allowing it to really have more of an impact in our daily lives, because we spend so much of our time up here in our brain. We often forget to consult down here in our soul, in our heart. So I'm hoping to keep it around 15 minutes today. We're going to see how that goes, because my outline is a little bit too long, and you probably know I can talk a little bit too much, but I'm going to do my best. Maybe 20 minutes. We'll see what happens. But I'm going to go ahead and just start going through our information for today. So, like I said, we're talking about trusting your inner wisdom, about discovering who you are inside and learning to hear that voice of wisdom that is within you innately. It's in you already. I promise it is there. Before I dive in, though, I guess I should say, hey, I'm Emilee. You're here on my Instagram, Suddenly Spiritual, and I'm really excited to be here live with you again. I did a little introduction last week, so I'm not going to get super in-depth, but basically, the short version of my spiritual story is that I went through a very sudden and unexpected spiritual awakening just a couple years ago, and it has absolutely rocked my world. Everything has changed, literally everything. Talk about a transformation, talk about just there's so much change and discomfort that comes from discovering something completely new about yourself. And while it was a rocky ride there, I'm still on the ride. It has been so magical discovering that there is a lot more out there than just the physical reality that we experience. And now that I'm here having this experience, I know that around us constantly is spirit, is love, is source. And when I say spirit, I mean like God here with us all the time, but also we have the spirits of our loved ones who have passed that are here with us. We've got spirit guides, there are angels, there's all of this amazing energy around us that we can interact with, and we do interact with every day, but most of us go our lives not even recognizing it. And so now being able to recognize and feel that is absolutely incredible. One of the most important things on my journey of spiritual awakening has been discovering my soul. That kind of kicked everything off for me, was this realization that I'm not just a brain, but I am a soul. And that blew my mind in the beginning because I truly thought I was just a brain. That's all that I had here in this human body. But as it turns out, there's a soul, there's a spirit, there's a divine connection that exists within. And that is why this month we're talking about soul discovery, because it is the most transformative aspect, I think, of a spiritual awakening and of learning how to exist in the world in a way that brings you joy, in a way that serves your purpose in life so that you can live a life that feels fulfilling and meaningful. And the way to do that is by connecting in with your soul and understanding and discovering who you truly are, and then letting that shine out for the world with all of its brightness and beauty and magic that you have right there within you. So that's kind of an introduction. Today, my intention is to talk to you about the value of learning to trust yourself, the value of discovering your inner wisdom, and we're going to talk a little bit about how to start hearing that inner wisdom. And I'll give you a practice, like something that you can start trying to do in order to connect more deeply with that wisdom that's inside of you. So if I'm looking off to the side, it's because I've got some notes over here to keep me on track. I sometimes go off on some tangents. So I'm going to start by just talking to you about what inner wisdom is. And last week we talked about the energy of your soul. And one of the things that I really hope I impressed upon you is that your soul is the infinite part of you. It is the part of you that existed before this lifetime. It will continue to exist after this lifetime. Your soul is the energy of God, divine, source, universe, whatever you want to call it. Your God, your soul is that same God energy, and it's infinite. It's the feeling of love. It's the energy of love, and it exists within you. So when we talk about your inner wisdom, we're talking about connecting with the wisdom of your soul, because we are very connected with our earth life, our this lifetime, but your soul has lived like this many lifetimes. And right now, when we use our brain, we're accessing about this much of the knowledge out of like everything that exists within us from our soul's experiences. And so when we tap into our inner wisdom, we're listening to our soul, and we're listening to the part of us that has that connection to the divine, that has that connection to spirit. And so your inner wisdom, everybody has this inner wisdom. Intuition, you might also use the word intuition a bit here. Everybody has this inside of you, and it's just learning how to understand it and access it so that we can use this wisdom in our daily lives to really enhance our life and feel more confident as we move forward in life. The reason that discovering or learning to trust your inner wisdom is important in soul discovery because building that trust within you is integral in learning to connect with your soul. By learning to trust your inner wisdom, by learning to trust yourself, you're creating safety within yourself. What I mean by that is, as you learn to listen to your heart, to your emotions, to your soul, as you learn to listen and then you start trusting the information that is coming through, it's like you're developing a relationship with your soul. And that relationship needs trust. And the more trust that is there, the deeper that relationship can be. And it creates this safety where you can admit to yourself what you are feeling. You can admit to yourself what your gut reaction is, what your instincts are, what your intuition is. It's like it suddenly becomes safe for those things to exist within you. And when you have that safe feeling within you, like it's okay for me to experience these things and it's okay for me to believe what is within me. When you have that safety within you, then you can start having that feeling that safety in the world around you. But before you can step out into the world as your soul self, as this person living from inner wisdom, you have to have the safety and the trust inside of you. You need to feel safe to be yourself within yourself in order to feel safe being yourself in the world. So I hope that that makes sense the way that I'm explaining it, but connecting and trusting and believing in ourselves is what is going to allow us to live out in the world in that same way, but it starts internally. It starts within us and creating the safety and confidence and trust internally. Now, I want to talk to you about the major difference it can make in your life when you choose to trust and listen to yourself. And I have a few things that I've like written out, but I mean, it's going to change your whole life. So just trust that. But I have some more specific examples and things to tell you about the major change that it can make when you start trusting internally and living from that inner wisdom. And one thing is that you'll notice that when you start connecting with your inner wisdom, there's so much less drama in your life. There's no more going back and forth. Should I do this? Should I not do this? Should I do this? Should I not do this? We can eliminate that by learning to trust within, by learning to hear within. We can eliminate that back and forth. We can also get rid of when we want to make a decision and we decide to go and ask everyone around us and do hours of research and do all of this stuff to try and make sure we make the right decision. We can eliminate some of that decision drama by learning to trust our internal guidance and learning to hear what we have inside and then trust that and just move forward without all of that external influence. It's not to say that we can't get good advice from other people, but it's just to say we can learn to trust ourselves and value our own opinions just as much and actually even more than how we value the opinions of everyone around us and all of the research that we want to do and all of that. We can learn to trust ourselves on a higher level than all of the external influences. And that makes things really freaking simple. So simple. There's so much less drama and worry about doing things wrong because we've just decided, oh, I already know, I trust myself and I'm going to go with it. I'm going to have my own back as I follow through on this decision because I trust myself and I love myself. And even if I make the wrong decision, I still trust myself and love myself and it's okay. How simple is that? It's easy. It makes life so much less dramatic once we learn to trust there. I also want to say learning to connect with your inner wisdom and feel more solid in your thoughts, beliefs, opinions, your knowing. It allows you to feel safer to say no to other people. I wanted to bring this up because as we grow up in life, we learn that the more agreeable we are, the easier that life is. And so we learn that when we say yes, we learn that that makes other people happy. That makes other people accept us. That makes things flow more smoothly, right? When we are being more agreeable. But sometimes we are agreeing to something, even though in our soul, we know that the answer is no. We know that this is not right for us. But instead of rocking the boat, I'm talking from my own experience. Instead of rocking the boat, I may tend to just say yes, even though I know that something is off. I know that something is wrong. But once I started learning to trust that internal guidance and value my own opinions, value my own knowing more than I valued the what other people were telling me, once I learned to make that shift, it has been easier for me to say no to people. It has been easier for me to say, this isn't right for me. This does not sit well for me. This is not in integrity with who I am. It's been easier for me to stand up with confidence because I'm able to know and trust what is happening in here. I also want to say one part of learning to trust your inner wisdom is that agreeableness that I'm talking about. It landed me in some very unsafe situations, like physically unsafe situations in my life, because I didn't want to make other people feel uncomfortable. So I just went along with what was happening instead of listening to that inner guidance, that inner wisdom, my intuition telling me, this isn't right, you need to leave. But because I had learned through my life to be agreeable, I had learned through my experiences to make sure other people were comfortable. I didn't want to make anyone uncomfortable by saying, I don't feel safe here, I need to leave. And so I kept myself in situations that were unsafe, even though inside I knew that I should leave. I want to bring that up because trusting in your inner wisdom, in your intuition, it's more than just this like fluffy have a good life thing. This is learning to trust and respect yourself and take responsibility for your life. Take responsibility for your decisions and feel that, gosh, like that obligation that you have to yourself, listening to what you think, what you believe, and trusting it enough to stand strong in who you are and be able to say, this situation is not okay and I'm leaving. And I really wish that I had that when I was younger, that confidence in what I had, what I knew inside, instead of delegating my experience to other people, instead of allowing other people to lead my experience and lead my life, because I just assumed and had this belief that they knew better than I did. And making this shift, so it's not only like, let's have this happy, joyful life, it's also like you have this obligation to yourself. You have this obligation to keep yourself safe, but also to take control of your experience that you're having in the world. So I just wanted to mention that, which is like a little bit heavier than the other things we've been talking about. But I want you to know that learning to connect with your soul and trust your intuition, trust that inner knowledge, like this is important, yes, in creating the life that you want, but it's also literally important every day of your life. This can be something that is very physically important in your life and impactful in your physical life, not just in your internal world, not just in your feelings, but in your actual physical life. So those are some reasons why it's really important to learn to trust that intuition and trust that inner knowledge. One last thing I want to say with that is that the more that you trust internally, the more ideas and thoughts and things that are going to come to you. The more that you create a safe place inside, the more that internal wisdom is going to grow. That connection is going to grow stronger through your ability to believe it. It's like a loop, like the idea comes up to you. You are like, okay, I believe it. I trust it. Let's go. And then more will come to you because you've created that trust, belief, and safety. So it's like a loop. And the more that you practice, the more that you decide to listen, believe, and act on what is happening in here, the stronger that connection with your inner wisdom and with your intuition will become. So it's like a practice. It just keeps looping. The more goodness you put in, the more goodness that comes out is how it works. So let's talk about how to hear your inner wisdom, how to actually hear what's going on internally and connect with that. Like I said, your inner wisdom that exists in your soul, and your soul is more connected with your emotions than it's connected with logic, with the brain. And so to start hearing your inner wisdom, you need to create a little bit of separation inside of you between your logic, thinking brain, and between your emotions and your like feelings and gut reactions. So your brain is all logic, which is great and necessary, obviously, for life. Like we need to be thinking in order to live this life. But if we make all of our decisions based on logic, what we're doing is making all of our decisions based on our past experiences and based on the way our brain functions. And the way our brain functions is that our brain is always trying to keep us safe. And the way that our brain experiences safety, or the way our brain believes in safety, is that safety exists in what we already know. So our brain is going to try to keep us in what we already know, even if you're in a situation that's not great. Like, even if you're in a situation that's very uncomfortable, it's what you know. And your brain will try to keep you in what you know because there's safety in knowing what is going to happen next and understanding the situation the way that our brain does with logic. And the other thing is, this logic in our brain, it's all based on our past experiences. It's based on everything we've learned up until this point, which, like, that's what keeps us running and moving and functioning in life. However, it also limits us because it limits us to our past experiences. It limits us so that we have this sort of box of what we believe is possible based on those past experiences. So while it's so important, obviously, to listen to our brain, it's also important to know the limitations of making decisions solely out of logic, solely from our brain. Now, when we tap into our soul and making decisions from our soul is based in possibility, in potential. Our soul is more forward rather than backward. Where our brain is making decisions based on the past, our soul is dreaming about the future. It's making decisions based on the future. I hope that that makes sense the way that I'm explaining it. Now, connecting with our soul, connecting with our inner wisdom, that is through our emotions. Our brain is through our thoughts. Our soul is through our heart and through our emotions. And it's through recognizing how things make us feel and letting feeling play a role in our decision making. Our inner wisdom, it's a lot more subtle than the brain. It's a lot more subtle. Our brain might scream, "Oh my God, no!" Right? There might be panic and anxiety, all of that in our brain. And in our soul, in our inner knowing, it's so much more subtle than that. It doesn't come through as panic or fear. It comes through with the energy of our soul, with the energy of love, that eternal love that we've talked about. Now, when I'm going to give you a little way to practice connecting with your inner wisdom. I want you to try to practice noticing the difference between your logical brain response and your feeling response throughout the day. Okay? And when I talk about feeling, I don't mean when you have an immediate reaction like anger or something like that. I'm more talking about, like, if you have a decision presented in front of you, like, even if it's like, what should I eat for lunch? Like, I don't know. If you have this decision presented in front of you, instead of like your logic brain saying, I should eat this because it's healthy, I should eat this because of whatever reason, you can stop and take a minute and separate that logic brain feeling and say, well, how does this make me feel? how would this food make me feel? What do I feel like I want to eat? What do I feel like I should choose? And try and tap into that feeling, not into the brain that's full of should and really the word should. If you're saying the word should, that's coming from your brain. If it's coming from your soul, if it's coming from that inner wisdom, it's a feeling of love and nurturing and care. It's different and it's subtle and it's hard to hear if you have never listened to what's going on inside of you. So it takes some practice to start hearing what is happening in your brain and distinguishing that from your soul and from that inner wisdom. Oftentimes we respond automatically to things. We respond to things without questioning our reactions. And what I'm asking you to do is just slow down a little bit in your decision making and think about, like, is this coming from my brain? Is this coming from my soul? And you can do this with literally any decision. I would recommend you start with something small. Don't take some life-changing decision that you have in front of you and decide, I'm going to only go from my soul. Like, let's start small here, okay? Obviously, it would be amazing to make these life-changing decisions from your soul, and your soul should be part of that decision. But I also think you need to build your confidence in trusting yourself before you change your entire life. Like, let's start small. Let's work our way up. What I do, I'm going to walk you through something that I do and something that you can try. My goodness, we're already at like 30 minutes. I said 15. This isn't, I should stop saying that because it's not possible for me. Okay. This practice that I do is I like to put my hand on my heart. And when I'm thinking about actually, I'm going to walk you through. I do this in the mornings, okay? I put my hand on my heart. I take some deep breaths. And I close my eyes and I ask myself, what do I need today? And then I'm quiet. And the answer that comes through in my head, the first thing that comes through in my head, I trust that. I trust it. And when I say, what do I need today? I don't mean, what do I need to put on my to-do list? I mean, what does my soul need today? Whatever comes through, I trust that. And then if you try this, trust what comes to you immediately. And we're asking what your soul needs today. What is it that my intuition is telling me I need to do today? What is important to my soul today? And trust what comes through and don't let your brain talk you out of it. As soon as that subtle knowing comes through, your brain is going to say, well, we don't have time to do that today. Your brain is going to say, well, what came to me was that I need to spend time outside, but some excuse why I can't do that. Your brain is going to try and qualify what comes through and sort of like logic your way out of it. And I would ask you, don't let your brain do that. Instead, I want you to trust what comes through to you and then follow through on it. Because as you follow through on these soul connections, soul messages, as you follow through, you're building that trust that we're talking about, and you're creating that safety within you to start listening to your soul and to your inner wisdom. By listening, trusting, and then acting on that, you're creating a sense of safety within yourself, and you're developing that trust within yourself to listen to what is coming through and start living your life from there. Because what we're talking about this month is discovering your soul and learning to live from your soul. And if we want to do that, we have got to start listening and then acting on it. Like, we actually have to do it. It's not just some passive practice or nice thing that we're saying. Like, there is action in this because we are alive, and we have to apply this to our life if we want to see those changes and experience that magic and transformation that is on the other side of learning to listen internally and live from that place. So This ended up way longer than I thought, but I always have so much to say. So thank you for sticking with me. I really hope that this message has been helpful for you and helped you to understand a little bit more what inner wisdom is and how you can access it. I really hope that you will practice just tapping into your soul, tapping into that inner wisdom and asking yourself, what do I believe? What do I need? What is my true experience here? And then allowing yourself to incorporate that into your decision making. And next week, we are going to talk about soul centered decision making. So, next week is going to build on this. Next week is going to build on this connection with your soul. Yay, Kelsey says thank you. That was super uplifting. I'm so happy. I am so happy, and I'm really glad that you were here for it and that you got to listen through the whole way. The one thing I want to leave you with is just know that you are worthy of trusting yourself. You're worthy of believing in yourself, and that knowledge is in you already. I promise. I can't wait to talk with you next week. Okay. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Suddenly Spiritual podcast. I'm so grateful that I get to be part of your journey of spiritual expansion. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you would leave a review for me on Apple Podcasts. It's a quick, free, easy way for you to support this podcast, and it helps me reach more people who are looking for support on their spiritual journey. You can find a link to leave a review in the show notes. Thank you so much, and I'll chat with you soon.